Ashley, and today I'm going to teach you how to paint these two Christmas cards. So these are both fairly traditional Christmas cards, but they rely on puns. I love a good pun. I think they're hilarious. So we're going to paint these two. And before we get started, I just want to mention that I always forget to ask for engagement while I'm actually painting. And these are full-length tutorials, live instruction, and I forget to ask for engagement. So before we jump into the painting, I do want to remind you that liking the video, commenting on the video, and subscribing really helps out the videos get seen and pushed out, and really helps my channel. And so at any point during the video, if you like something that you see, hit the like button. If you find something that you have a question about or that you like particularly, you can leave a comment and just kind of start a conversation in the comments. And then always subscribe to the channel. You'll get tons more content. There's tons of tutorial videos on there. So thank you so much for doing that. Now let's dive into the paintings. So I'm going to be using these Funto blank watercolor cards. They're cold pressed texture and they're decently heavyweight. They're 300 GSM and 5x7 in size, and they can be portrait or landscape, whatever you want. They come with envelopes. They are not 100% cotton. So we're not going to get like those beautiful, super subtle transitions. It's gonna be a little bit harder to work on, but they are good for what they are. And since it's smaller, it's easier to work faster. And those wet on wet is not terribly hard. The cards do dry pretty fast though. So I have two out here, and we're gonna start with our first card here, which is going to be a gingerbread house. So this one is going to say there's snow place like home with a little gingerbread house underneath. So I'm going to get started with mixing my colors. So I'm just going to take a large 16 round brush. This is a Degato artist brush. It's synthetic, not super expensive, but it definitely gets the job done. And it holds a decent amount of water. So I'm kind of cleaning up my brown well here, and I'm going to add some burnt sienna for my gingerbread color. It's a little bit muted because there were some blues in this well already. So if yours is looking too orange, just add a touch of ultramarine and it will tone it down. Okay, so we have that color, and then we're going to get some reds mixed up here, which again, I already have reds in this well. So I'm gonna kind of just mix all that together and add some alizarin crimson and then some cadmium scarlet, which is like an orange basically. And that's gonna make it a bit more on the warmer side for our red. And then for the greens, I'm going to use my greens here, which is going to be sap green. Okay. And then we're going to use some ultramarine blue, because that's what we're going to use to tone down the burnt sienna. So to tie that in, so we'll have those colors together, and that'll get us a nice deep green. And then if we need a more fresh, like vibrant green, I'll just go into the sap green for that more yellowy color. And that'll give us a good variety there. If we need to tone it down a little bit more, we just add a little bit more of the ultramarine. And I can add a little bit of brown in that too, if I want to, so the burnt sienna. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and sketch out our gingerbread house just so that we get it kind of placed on the page where we want it. So and so that we get the perspective correct. So I'm going to start with the roof line. So just starting with kind of middle-ish of the page. This is the top of the roof. Okay, and I'm angling it, just doing a line angled down. Okay, and then the back of the roof line is basically gonna angle and make a triangle. And then the front, we want to follow that same angle. And then we're basically just making a rhombus here, a rectangle. Okay, so there's that part of our roof. And then for the other part of the roof, we're gonna bring from the point and make another triangle. Okay. Now for the walls, we want this to have some overhang. So the front of the house isn't going to come directly out from where that point meets. It's going to come from inside a little bit. So there's one line. Okay. And then I'm actually going to change the angle of this a little bit just to make it a little bit wider. Okay. And then this line is also not going to come from the end. It's going to come from inside a little bit. Okay. Now, since it's at an angle, the bottom here is going to be angled back a little bit. So we're going to take that and angle it up the page. Okay. And then we can do a little bump out here where that eave is hanging over, and then that's going to come all the way up to the top of the house. So that is going to be the underside of the roof there. Okay. And then for the side wall, it's going to go back at the same angle-ish as the roof line. And then we just want to make sure our vertical is staying nice and straight up and down. Okay, so there is our gingerbread house. And then we're going to put a little path here. So it's going to curve around and kind of fade out. Okay. Curve around and then fade out. And there's our little path to our front door. So we're going to put in our front door now. So it's just going to be an archway here. So nice vertical lines on the sides and then curved on the top. Okay, and then that'll have a doorknob. We'll put a wreath on the door, which we're just going to paint in. And then we want to put some windows. So I'm just going to put maybe a window here. So these are literally just going to be squares. Okay. And I'm following the angles of the edges here. So I got to keep my verticals straight up and down, and then angle the bottom and top to match the bottom line of the house. Okay. And then put a couple other windows up above here. And gingerbread houses are not perfect. If you've ever tried to build one, you know, they're always a little wonky. So if it's a little wonky, it's not a big deal at all, because it just makes it look like it's a homemade gingerbread house. Okay, we're gonna put some windows on this wall now. So I'm just gonna do 2. So I'm doing some vertical lines here, and then another pair here. And then I'm gonna make the bottom of the windows, and then the top of the windows. Okay, there's the basics of our house. And then we'll put like some trees in and some little candy canes along the path. So I'm gonna draw a few of the elements, and I'm gonna draw a gingerbread person here too. So we're gonna put a gingerbread woman here. So here's the little skirt. Okay. And then its arms are gonna just be little half circle kind of shapes. Trying to make it symmetrical-ish. Okay. And then that's gonna come in a little bit farther, and then we're gonna have a nice big head here. Okay. And then for the legs, they're gonna come little line and then another big half circle shape, little line, and then a half circle shape. And then they come up. Extend that dress down just a little bit more. Okay, there's our gingerbread person. And then we're gonna have those candy canes lining the walk. So I'm just gonna put in some little candy cane shapes as placeholders. So we'll do 3 on each side. And I'm making them a straight line up, and then the little curve for the hook. And those curves can be different sizes and angles because as the path curves, you know, the candy canes might be facing different directions too. So it's okay to have some variety with that. Okay, so now I'm gonna do some little gingerbread trees. So I want these to be really angular. So there'd be a little tree here. And then coming up the center, it's gonna have a little point, and we're gonna have a little triangle there. Okay, and then another triangle that comes out a little bit wider. And then another. Okay. And then maybe I'll do another one here. So we'll have that little triangle. Trying to keep the perspective right. So the bottom of the little triangles should be angled like the bottom of the house. Should be. It's not going to be perfect though. Okay. Oh, something like that. And then maybe we'll put some little like gumdrops on the sides here. This one's going to be overlapped by a candy cane. Okay. And then maybe I'll do a little, like, I don't know if you've ever done an ice cream cone with frosting on it to make a tree. We'll tuck one of those behind here, I think. So there's my basic drawing for the gingerbread house. And I could have drawn that a lot faster if I was in a hurry, or you can trace it if you do one and then want to make a bunch of these, just trace it and it'd be faster, or you can just freehand and paint it. But I decided to draw it. Okay, now we're gonna start with our gingerbread house color. So I'm gonna take my size 8 round brush and that color, get a light wash of it and put it over the whole house. Now the windows are gonna be just framed. So like we just kind of put icing on it. So I'm not worried about painting over those. I'm painting over the trees because those are gonna be the darker green anyway. So it can kind of just paint over everything here because it's not going to be a very dark color and we can paint over it. I'm not doing the roof though because that's going to have snow. So I'm painting everything else, including the underside of the roof. And the bottom can be a little bit jagged because it's gonna be snowy. So if it's a little bumpy on the bottom, that just makes it look like there's some snow going up there. Okay, kind of warm up that color a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna take a little bit of ultramarine, tap that in for a shadow, trying to do it wet and wet. A bit more of my burnt sienna. Add that in. Warm it up again a little bit more. And just kind of strengthen that color. Add just a little bit of water to push some of that pigment away. And give it a little bit of a snowy effect, hopefully. Okay, I'm gonna paint my gingerbread person here. So I'm just filling in that shape with my burnt sienna. Just kind of making it a little bit bigger because I lost some of the shoulder region. I don't know if making it bigger really helped, but that's okay. All right, now we're going to add some snow shadows. So I'm gonna take my ultramarine, put a little bit of burnt sienna with it, and then a lot of water so that it's very, very light. And then we're just gonna add some shadows to the roof of the house. Kind of do it along the edges to define that edge, and then add kind of random texture onto the roof in that blue color. So I'm kind of curving a little bit and just kind of tapping and doing a quick curve so that I get kind of random marks. I don't want it to be super uniform. Okay. And then in general, this side is shadowed, so it can be fairly blue, to be honest. Okay, and then we'll just add a little bit of blue into the ground. So I'm just taking a light wash and putting some little mounds of blue. And then again over here it's shadowed, so I'm going to add that shadow along the house and on the side and under our gingerbread person. And then keep adding little mounds of blue here and there. Maybe right along the path, if we shoveled some snow, there'd be some kind of piled up along the edge that you might see. Okay, so there's our snow. Now we're gonna go in and do a tree. So over here, I'm gonna do a green tree, and I'm gonna leave some white space for some snow. And this is not supposed to look like a realistic tree. It's supposed to look like icing on an ice cream cone. So I'm not super worried about it. I'm also not leaving very much white space, but that's okay. All right, there's my little ice cream cone tree. Now I'm gonna do my other trees here. So I'm gonna paint the green triangles. And then I'll go back and paint the cookie part over that. This one's going to be behind the gingerbread person, so making sure to paint around. And then I'm just going to add one more here. So just paint a triangle. And then from the center of that, paint another triangle that's slightly bigger. And then do the same thing for the third one. Okay, I'm gonna put some red on to frame the door here. So maybe it's like a red licorice door frame, I don't know. There we go. And then I'm gonna frame the windows with the same red. And again, at this point, I'm like not worrying at all about it being perfect or even or, you know, anything like that, because it's like I'm freehanding and actually making a gingerbread house. So I'm drawing with icing right now. So it's not a big deal if it's not perfect. And then I'm just gonna add little plus signs to my windows. That one's super crooked, but that's okay. Okay, here we go. What? Now I'm gonna add a little mouth to my gingerbread person and some little eyes. I'm gonna use purple just because, I don't know, I want to. Little purple eyes. Okay. And then I'm gonna put a shadow. So I'm gonna take burnt sienna and ultramarine, mix it together to get a darker brown. And then I'm gonna add that as a shadow, like you're seeing the side of the cookie. Okay. You're gonna see the top a little bit here. Because we're looking down at our scene. So the top and the side, but not the underneath. Don't want extra water. Okay, so we're gonna see the side here. Okay, and then the side of the foot and the top. There we go, and then the side of this foot. A little bit more of the top. And then we're gonna do that same thing on the side of the cookies for the trees. I need a smaller brush. I'm going to take my size 2 and get some more burnt sienna. And then we're going to touch that in for the trunk of the tree too. Go around kind of the whole thing, like maybe we didn't ice all the way up to the edge. Okay, that's what I'm going to do for all of these. So this is pretty much just burnt sienna. I can add that shadow color in after. Add my tree trunk. Okay. I'm gonna warm up my front of my cookie here. Okay. Now I'm gonna add a bit of a shadow under the eaves here. So just taking my shadow mix, ultramarine and burnt sienna, and adding that in. Nice and dark there. And then warm it up a little bit. And add it to the front of the house where it would be casting a shadow. And then the side. There'd be that shadow under the eaves. We'll just kind of blend that out a little bit around the windows. Now I'm going to take some green and do a wreath here on the door. So I'm just going to tap that green in a circle. Get some darker green in. Okay. And then I'll add some red to that. And I'm going to do the same thing up here, except bigger. Okay, let's make some Christmas lights. So I'm just gonna do basically dots, and I'm gonna space them out. So I did one on the front, now I'm going to the center and doing another one, and then the back and doing another one. And then I'll put one halfway in between those, and then I'll do a different color for in between those. Okay, so now I'm going to do green. And I'm getting nice thick paint, so very well activated, so that it's opaque and goes over everything I've already painted. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit of red onto my wreaths, just randomly dotting it in, not being precise or anything. Okay. Now let me go back in and add a little bit of shadow on the side of these cookies now that they're dry.
Yeah.
A dark shadow for that Eve, and then a little bit of a shadow on the side of some of the decorations. Okay, now for the candy canes, I'm just gonna literally take some of the red and do little angled lines. Curving around the top. Okay. As I come up over the top, the lines get more vertical and then they turn the opposite direction. Add a little bit stronger color. Back me to the whole line. There we go. Now I'm gonna put some red. I'm gonna put some red gumdrops now on the side of the door. This is literally just a red blob with a curved bottom. Same, tucking one behind this candy cane. It's gonna kind of blend in, that's okay though. And then I'm gonna take a damp brush and just lift out a highlight. Along the side. Okay. Go in and add stronger color to my gingerbread person for the face.
So good. This is good.
And then we're just gonna wait for that to dry, and then I'll do the lettering above it. So I'm gonna actually paint the path really quick as well. I want the path to look like gingerbread as well. So we're just gonna use that same mix, go around the candy canes. And then I'm just gonna add a bunch of water here and let that fade out. Now I'll let that dry. And then I'll come back and do the lettering. I'm gonna use this Heron Blue number 40 Chromatech brush pen for my wording, for my words. And so it's just a pale blue color, kind of mimics the snow color here. And I'm just gonna go for it, except that I am going to draw. Here we go. I'm gonna draw some lines so that I keep the words straight on the page. So I can erase these lines after.
Wait.
So I'm gonna write there's snow place like home. So I'm gonna start with theirs on the top line. And then snow is going to be in all caps.
So,
Yeah. And then home will be in all caps also. Never mind, because I accidentally started writing a lowercase o. So it's going to be not in all caps. Sometimes you just gotta go with the flow. Okay, now I'm gonna do a few little snowflakes. So I'm gonna do 6 lines, so like a line straight up and down, and then an X. And then I'm gonna add little lines coming off of those, like so. Okay, I'm gonna add another one up here. And then another one right off of home. And then I'm just gonna add some dots around. They can kind of look like falling snow. Okay. And there's snow place like home. I'm gonna add just a little bit of this brush pen color to some of the snow, just to tie it in a little bit more. We can add a bit more shadow here with this color. Just to darken it up some. A little bit more on the edges. And then add a little shadow for the candy canes here. And then I did not add my doorknob, so I'm gonna take just a little bit of red and put a circle for the doorknob there. And there is their Snow Place Like Home little gingerbread house card. So now we're gonna start our next one. And this one is going to be Season's Greetings. So I'm gonna do a wreath, and it's gonna be seasonings. So I'm gonna have some decorations on the wreath with cinnamon, star anise, and nutmeg. And then the wreath itself, the foliage, is gonna be rosemary, sage, and bay leaves. And I just thought, you know, it's funny to me. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm gonna start by drawing a circle, and I'm just gonna kind of freehand it because I'm not super worried about it being perfect. Because the foliage is gonna come off of it anyway, so it's not gonna be a perfect circle anyway. Okay, so like that. And then I'm gonna draw in on the bottom here my different decorative items. So we're gonna have cinnamon sticks, and so we're gonna do a line down the middle, and then almost like a little heart shape for the back. Okay, and then same for the front here. We're gonna have like a curly Q heart. Okay, and then we're just gonna make those meet in the back. There's our first cinnamon stick. And then we're gonna have a second one coming out underneath it. So there's the back. And then here's our little curly Q front. And then again, just making those lines meet the front. Okay, so there's cinnamon sticks. And then our star anise is gonna be right here. And so we're gonna start with like a circle for the middle. Okay, and then it's gonna have 8 points. So I'm gonna do 8 lines coming off of it. So I did 4, and now I'm going to add directly in the middle of those another 4. Okay. And then the shape is kind of like a diamond for each of these. So I'm just going to do that, and they kind of touch at the widest points. Yeah. And then come in a little bit closer at the where it meets in the center. And you can feel free to turn your card around whichever direction you need to make this easier. Okay, there's my star anise. And then the nutmeg, I'm gonna do cross sections basically. So we're gonna tuck one in right here. Okay, so a little half circle and then an oval on the top. And then this one's gonna be more a straight on view. And then we'll tuck one more kind of on top of that one. Okay, so again, a half circle and then a little oval on top. I had it kind of angling that way, but I want it to angle that way, I think. So I'm gonna bring my half circle up higher on that side and then tilt my oval the other direction. Okay, so there are my 3 nutmeg balls, nutmeg nuts. I don't know what they are. Anyway, but it's nutmeg. I've only really ever seen it in actual like ground form, so I had to Google it, and that's what it looks like. Okay, so all of these are basically the same colors for the nutmeg, cinnamon, and star anise. So I'm gonna start with my burnt sienna. And do a wash of burnt sienna over the cinnamon sticks. To get that first layer of color. I should have lightened it up. I keep doing this where I forget to lighten up my sketch and erase, but that's okay. Okay, now I'm gonna take some of my shadowy color. So this just has some of the ultramarine in it, and I'm just gonna tap that along the center line. And along the front. The one underneath is going to be more shadowed, so I'm going to tap that along. The edge and then pull away so that it doesn't bleed into the top one. It kind of stays on the bottom one, because wherever you pick up the brush, there's going to be a little explosion. So if you don't want that explosion to happen right next to something, just pull away a little bit and then you can control where that happens. Just adding a little bit more of the burnt sienna to it because it should be a bit warmer than that. Now I'm going to let that dry and I'll go in and add in the shadows later. I'm going to do, actually, erase that. I do want to lighten up the nutmeg here. So let me just go over it with my kneaded eraser here. Star anise as well. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna lighten up that circle. Okay. So let me go over the nutmeg now. And I'm just treating this group of nutmeg as a single item first. So I'm doing that first wash over all of them. I'm not worrying about making them distinct yet. And then I'll do the same thing for the star anise. Do that first wash. Okay, lifting up a little highlight in the center there. So drying off my brush and scrubbing out some of the pigment that's in the center. There we go. Okay, I should be able to come back now onto the cinnamon and do some more shadows. So I'm gonna take my burnt sienna and some ultramarine to make it darker. Very little ultramarine though, so that it's still nice and warm. And then I'm gonna do a line down the center. Okay. And then I'm going to fill in leaving a little bit of that lighter color. Filling in my little curly heart there. It's shadow color. Okay. And then let's make it a little bit darker on the end here. There we go. Now I'm going to use that dark color for this side. Okay. And then add just a touch of that. And then I'm going to take the lighter, warmer version and add the line down the center. Okay. And now I'm going to let that dry and then I'll add some more shadow in. I'm going to take that darker color, so more ultramarine, and do the outside of my nutmeg. So I'm going to do a little line around the oval and then fill in my little half circle. I don't know how round nutmeg is, if it's like a perfectly round shape, but mine are not, so I really don't know. Okay, it's the same for this top one. Add a very thin line around the top and then fill in my little half circle. Okay, add just a little bit more burnt sienna to it just to warm it up some and create a little bit of variety. Now on the cinnamon, I want to add a little bit more darkness and some texture. So I'm going to take that color, dry off my brush, and then quick drag across. And that's going to warm it up and add a little bit of texture. Okay, for the And then I'm gonna create some shadows and a little bit of separation between the diamond shapes. So I'm just choosing a side for shadow and adding that in. So kind of the underneath and left side. And I'm just kind of loosely adding shadows into the diamonds here. So here I have to transition. I'm keeping it on the left side, so I transitioned and put those two next to each other. Okay, and then there's going to be like a little pod here, I guess. So there's some shadows around where it kind of opens in the center. I'm going to kind of do a shadow around the circle in the center, and then I'm going to put a little opening like that. And maybe not all of them are open, but most of them are. This one definitely needs an opening. It's too wide. Add a little bit of separation here, a little shadow. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more blue to make it even darker and add just a touch of more darkness to certain areas, not to all of the shadows, but just to parts of them. Okay, there we go. And then I'll go ahead and add a glaze to make that more golden after. Let's add that to my nutmeg right now. So this is a glaze. I have to be really gentle with that on this paper because, again, this lifts really easily. So if you use too many brush strokes doing the glaze instead of just making it warmer, it will actually change the texture, which we don't want to do. Add a little bit more concentrated burnt sienna here to the end so that that is a bit warmer and a bit more defined. There we go. Lift that a little bit. Okay. This is probably dry enough to do my glaze. So, watery paint, decent amount of water on the brush, and just a quick brush over. to warm it up. Lifting up some right in the center there. So, because I want that to be lighter. And then adding a pretty thick version of my shadow color. Just to get a little bit more variety. Okay, now for the nutmeg, it kind of reminds me of like brains inside. So there's dark little lines coming in, and they're just kind of random from what I can tell. They're probably not random, but they're close enough to random. So I'm just gonna do little wiggly lines coming in from the side, not going all the way to the center. Okay. Get a touch more darkness and add it for some shadows. Okay, I think that works. Now we're gonna work on our actual wreath. This is taking a lot longer than I expected it to take, but that's okay. So I'm gonna start by mixing up my green. So rosemary is kind of an olivey green, and so are bay leaves. And then sage is gonna be a little bit more of a bluish green. So I'm starting with my sap green, adding a little bit of cobalt for my bluish green. We can add a touch of the burnt sienna to make it more of that olive green color. Okay. And then I'm by getting some little like stems of rosemary. So I'm just very tip of my brush and flicking. I would move to the size 8 and just kind of flicking around, and then I can add little dabs off of that.
Wait.
So rosemary is kind of like almost like pine needles, so it works well for this little wreath. Okay, so just using the very tip of my brush, and then I'm going to go all the way around with that, basically.
Yeah.
And in some areas, I'm going to leave a little bit more bare than others because I'm going to put some of those bay leaves and some sage.
Here it is. here. It was. That's when something spent.
So I'm just going around, keeping all of my twigs going the same circular direction. And some I'm kind of pointing off outside of the circle and then inside of the circle a little bit, just so that it's not too empty. It's going to feel a little bit bushier doing that. So I'm literally just dabbing, like nothing super fancy about these brush strokes. It's just a little bit time consuming to do all of these, but it's still fun and kind of repetitive, so it's relaxing. Okay, and then if you want to add a little bit of like shadowy colors in, you can add a little bit more blue onto some of the little twig areas.
Yeah.
And you can do that while it's wet or after it's dry. It doesn't really matter. While it's wet, it'll bleed a little bit. While it's dry, it'll look a little bit more layered, which either way is fine. Okay, now for my bay leaves, I'm going to take more of that olivey green and like I'm going to tuck a sprig in here. So we're going to have the little branch, and then bay leaves are almost kind of traditional leaf shape, but then they're slightly jagged on the edges. So just adding a touch of extra color just outside the lines almost to make it a little bit jagged. And then I can add another one coming up this way. There we go. And just kind of connect those together. And then I'm gonna do another pair here, I think. These ones are gonna be a little bit smaller. There we go. And then another pair right here. Okay, now the sage leaves are gonna be more blue, so I'm just adding a bunch of cobalt blue to my green. And they're gonna be smaller leaves. So kind of do my branch and then do little kind of rounded leaf shapes. Okay, a little bit up here. And I'm kind of making these sprigs have symmetrical-ish leaves. Lift up a little bit there. Would add a touch more blue. There we go. Okay. And then just because I'm going to add some berries to it, just because I think the pop of red will look nice. So this is just alizarin crimson, really. And I'm just going to add in basically little clusters of dots. Nothing crazy. I'm not trying to even vary the value at all, make any lighter, darker, it doesn't matter, because they're so small that they're just a touch of color. They're pretty insignificant, really. Maybe tuck some back here. Okay. All right, and then we're gonna write Season's Greetings in red in the center. Okay, so we're just gonna go for it and hope it fits, basically. Okay. There's seasons and then greetings. I'm going to offset just a little bit.
Great. Terracotta.
There we go. So there is our Season's Greetings card with kind of our traditional Christmas seasonings. And here is there's Snow Place Like Home. I just need to erase those pencil lines now. There we go. And they're all done. So those took a little bit longer than I expected, but they're really cute, especially this one. I really love this one. This one, I like it, but I don't like it as much as Season's Greetings. I thought this one was more fun. And it's a little bit more fun to paint, a little bit more relaxing. But they're both really cute. So I hope you give them a go. All right, again, here are those 2 Christmas cards. So these ones took a little bit longer, but they are very cute and fun, and you can always create copies of them and, you know, print them on cards so that you don't have to paint everyone individually. But if you just want a little slow down time and to enjoy a Christmas card painting, definitely give these a try. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day.